Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a 1951 film noir called On Dangerous Ground. It stars Robert Ryan, Ida Lupino, directed by Nicholas Ray. It's a film that's included in a Robert Ryan retrospective currently showing on the Criterion Channel 9 Films with Robert Ryan. The basic storyline is fairly simple. A police officer in the big city, detective. He lives alone. He's very successful, but he's becoming increasingly sadistic. The crimes that envelop him on a daily basis are wearing down his humanity. He roughs up suspects. He's given warnings, he ignores the warnings. His partners have families, they can put his job aside, their jobs aside, but Robert Ryan's police detective cannot. And so he is given an assignment, exiled to Siberia as he sees it, to aid a sheriff in a rural county about 70 miles north of the city that he's working in. It's mountains. The first 35 minutes are in the city. The rest of the movie is in the mountains. So we go from the grimy darkness of the city to the wide open whiteness of snowy mountains. When he gets there, he quickly sees that the father of a dead girl that has been killed, murdered, and the perpetrator is on the loose. This father is played by Ward Bond, and he is sort of a version of Robert Ryan's character in the big city. He's going to be judge and jury. He keeps his shotgun along on the chase, and he's going to when they catch the perpetrator, he's going to execute him on the spot. Along the way, they come across Ida Lupino, who has top billing in this movie, along with Robert Ryan, but it's at the 40-minute mark before she makes an appearance. And of course, she's involved in some way in hiding the perpetrator. So it's a basic storyline. And like I say, fairly simple. It's often considered one of the great film noirs, but it has a somewhat tarnished reputation, as that it was made at RKO Studios at the time when Howard Hughes was the owner, and he was hands-on. There were changes made, softening the storyline, perhaps a little bit more sentiment put into it. And also Nicholas Ray got ill during the making of the movie, and Ida Lupino actually directed some of the scenes. I don't think it's recorded exactly what scenes that she directed. But despite these complaints about On Dangerous Ground, this nevertheless, to me, is one of the most magnificent film noirs of all time. For one thing, it has one of Bernard Herrmann's greatest scores. I mean, the credit sequence is amazing. Knocked me off my chair. I hadn't remembered it. I haven't seen this movie in a very long time. And then during the chase scenes, there's a lot of very still, quiet moments in this movie where no music is used at all. But then in the chase scene, it picks up again. But also in the scenes between Robert Ryan and Ida Lupino, she plays a blind girl. And one of the complaints about the film was that it was playing off of the success of Johnny Belinda, where Jane Wyman, I believe, got an Academy Award for playing a blind girl. And so in the score, in the scenes where the sort of tender, the makings of love developing, Herrmann uses a Baroque instrument rarely used called the viola d'amore, and it was played by a performer named Virginia Majewski, and Herrmann lobbied successfully to get her name onto the credits, and she's actually on the credits, on the same credit as Bernard Herrmann. And also, we have a storyline. So the intensity of Nicholas Ray's direction is always pretty amazing to me. He said that the working title of all his movies was "I'm a Stranger Here Myself," and his films really reach a high point of a kind of romanticism in which strangers find each other and can they connect. Of course, most famously in Nicholas Ray's masterpiece, Rebel Without a Cause. And I wanted to read a quote that Francois Truffaut said about, it's very brief, quote what Francois Truffaut said about Nicholas Ray. All his films tell the same story, the story of a violent man who wants to stop being violent, and his relationship with a woman who has more moral strength than himself. There is always moral solitude. There are always hunters, sometimes lynchers. And this comes from, this passage comes from a book called In Lonely Places, film noir Beyond the City by Imogen Sarah Smith. And I made a short video on this book, and I made a mistake, and I identified on that cover picture that's as from On Dangerous Ground. It's actually from Secret Beyond the Door, Joan Fontaine, a Fritz Lang movie, which he devotes 4 pages to On Dangerous Ground in a broad survey. And of course, On Dangerous Ground, to On Dangerous Ground, and that is really one of the films that illustrates her thesis that film noir would go out of the city into various other milieus, including rural, wide open spaces. That happens in the final half of On Dangerous Ground. And again, this is part of Robert Ryan's retrospective, and he is an actor that really covers the classical period of film noir. This retrospective section on the Criterion Channel, and this is May 2021, includes Caught, which I did a video on, in which Robert Ryan actually plays a fictionalized version of Howard Hughes. And it also includes Odds Against Tomorrow from 1959 with Harry Belafonte and Robert Ryan in Robert Wise movie that sometimes film historians have identified as the final film of the classic film noir era. Of course, film noir has gone on, and is the enduring qualities of the film noir from this 10, 12, 15-year era have seeped into films, up until the modern times. Ryan is so effective in these kind of film noirs because he mostly plays these brutal characters, and yet you can still identify the humanity in him. He was, despite playing bigots and sadists in the movies, in real life he was very liberal, vocally liberal, was involved in many humanitarian efforts, and I think he even started a school for disadvantaged children with his wife. So you can see some of that seep into his characters, which always makes them interesting. And by the way, this retrospective of Ryan films on the Criterion Channel also includes The Wild Bunch, which is, I was surprised to see. I don't ever remember it being on the Criterion Channel before. So this is 1951 On Dangerous Ground, one of my favorite Nick Ray movies, and Robert Ryan performances, and Lupino is superb as well. So that about wrap it up. I thank everybody who stuck with me to the end. I appreciate it. I hope I said something interesting along the way to make it worth your while. And you guys take care. Catch you next time.